Hey, what's going on? I'm Patrick Jaguar, the Cosmic Alchemist, and welcome to this episode. So in today's video I want to talk about the Virgo new moon. And every fall we have a Virgo new moon, but this one is pretty unique and it's a special one. So I want to get more into that. So this Virgo new moon is taking place today, Friday, 16th of October. 2020. So I'm shooting this on the day of the new moon. I might not have this out till the next day, but it's in the ballpark, and the effects of this new moon are going to carry on. So long after the event happens, until the next new moon in a month. So what's special about this new moon is that today's new moon in Virgo is at 29 degrees. And so this is the second new moon in Virgo in a row, because in September, on the 17th, I believe it was, September 17th, we had another Virgo new moon. That was at 0 degrees. So September 17th, there was a new moon, 0 degrees of Virgo. Today, October the 16th, we've got new moon in Virgo at 29 degrees. And this is the sidereal system, by the way. I do Vedic astrology, I do sidereal. It's visible sky. It's not the tropical astrology that is used in the typical Western astrology that's more popular. So anyway, 2 Virgo new moons in a row. September 0 degrees, today in October, 29 degrees. These are the miracle degrees. 0 degrees is where a planet comes into a sign. 29 degrees is where a planet leaves a sign. So at these degrees, you basically have almost an infinite potential of energy. And this has actually been studied in South India at the scientific observatories. They've noticed that when planets are crossing these areas of the sky, when they cross from one sign to the other, and the signs they're human constructs to a degree, but they've noticed at the observatories when planets cross from one degree to another, they actually emit more radiation. There's an uptick in the energy and the radiation that they're emitting. So it's pretty interesting. So 0 degrees and 29 degrees are the miracle degrees. 0 degrees is the beginning. It's like a newborn baby. It's a birth. Anything can happen. It's infinite potential. And then 29 degrees, it's a conclusion. It's almost a death. But every death is a rebirth. So it brings things to a close, but then it brings things to a close so that something new can be born and take the place of whatever's ending or dying. So 2 Virgo new moons in a row, it's pretty rare to have the new moon happen on these particular degrees. It's the only way that can happen, that you can have a new moon or a full moon 2 months in a row in the same sign. One has to be on 0 degrees and one has to be on 29, because a sign is only 30 degrees wide, and just mathematically it doesn't work out. You have about a month between new moons or between full moons. So it's rare that 2 in a row happen in the same month, and when it happens, it's marking something very special, and it's telling us something very special. So astrology, the stars, the planets, that's one of the ways God or the divine speaks to us, how the universe speaks to us. It has all kinds of ways, but the sky, the visible sky, that is the closest thing you can come to an objective reality in this world, and the closest thing that you can come to the truth. Because you look up in the sky, you see what planets what stars that the planets are transiting across. So it's the closest thing you're going to come to the truth, or to an objective reality. So God speaks to us through the stars, through the planets. And every holy book on earth says this. The Bible says this. Quran, Bhagavad Gita, whatever. So Virgo is a sign of healing. Virgo deals with health, it deals with disease, it deals with struggles, conflicts. It deals with sort of getting all the details together, getting your ducks in a row so that you can do things. So, the symbol for Virgo it's often an angel, in the Western tradition. In India, it's a woman standing on the deck of a boat with a sheaf of wheat in one hand and a bag of medicinal herbs in the other. So it's like it's a healer arriving to provide healing, to provide treatment. So, and then the moon, so we're talking about a new moon. The moon is the mind. The sun is the soul. It's also the ego. And the ego is not a bad thing as long as it's balanced. So the moon is the mind, because the mind reflects the soul's energy, the moon reflects the sun's energy. So they're analogs. Everything, we live in a holographic universe, so everything works according to the same rules. It's just a question of scales, whether you're talking about an atom, a molecule, an organ, a body, a planet, a solar system, a galaxy, whatever. It's all the same rules. Everything mirrors everything else. So Virgo is all about healing. And it deals with healing ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever. It's about healing our environment. There's many dimensions to this. So these new moons, these 2 moons in a row in Virgo, they deal with healing, and they deal with bringing things that have caused us dis-ease, discomfort, pain, anger, disappointment, whatever. It's about helping to heal this stuff and bringing it to a close so we can move on to new chapters of our life. And that's the way life is. If you can't set your baggage down and just set aside the past, then you can't move on, and you can't be happy, and you can't do new things in life. So we're getting help to do this. And really the theme right now for this Virgo new moon, and the theme for this part of the year, we're healing a lot of anger and resentment that's been very long standing. And I say this because this Virgo new moon is in a direct aspect or a direct opposition from the retrograde Mars. So Mars is now in Pisces, and Mars doesn't like being in Pisces. Mars feels very confined and constrained and very restless and impulsive in Pisces, because Mars, it's the warrior planet, the planet of action and activity and taking the initiative. Pisces is one of Jupiter's temples. It's a Jupiter-ruled sign, and it's the yin aspect of Jupiter. So and Jupiter is the guru of the cosmos. Guru is a Sanskrit word for deep, so a teacher of deep knowledge and deep wisdom. So in Pisces, Jupiter teaches us very deep lessons, and to learn these deep lessons, Jupiter teaches us to be quiet and to meditate and to go inward. Mars doesn't like to go inward, except in Scorpio. Mars likes to go outward. So you put Mars in Pisces, it gets desperate, it can be extremist, it gets this feeling like it's ready to take on the world and just win at all costs, and it can get kind of crazy with its anger, because Mars also symbolizes anger. So in that Mars in Pisces in retrograde today, it's at 26 degrees of Pisces, with this new moon at 29 degrees of Virgo. They're within 3 degrees of each other, so they're pretty close. So the moon is really feeling the anger here. So one thing we're really dealing with this new moon in Virgo is healing the anger in our lives, and not just, the barista at Starbucks got your order wrong, or somebody cut you off in traffic today, but dealing with things that have been ongoing in your life and things that have been ongoing in the world and that are multi-generational. And in our world, for probably the past 5,000 years, we've been under an oppressive system where rulers and the religions and merchants, the bankers, They have a system for controlling us and for dictating many of the aspects of our lives. And one sec, I'm just going to move this camera here. I like that. So we've lived under a very oppressive system, and we've been raised to just go along with it and to be very naive about it and to not ask questions. And we've been raised to have a sense of Stockholm syndrome for the system we've grown up under. So if you haven't read up on a lot of psychology, Stockholm syndrome is when somebody who's been kidnapped starts to have affection for their captors, and they defend the actions of their captors, and they'll even help them. There have even been hostage situations in the past where Stockholm syndrome in the person who's kidnapped is so bad that they'll defend the kidnappers with their lives. It's like if you read about Patty Hearst back in the 70s. She was an heiress who was kidnapped by a left-wing militant group, and ended up helping them, carry out, violent activities because the Stockholm syndrome was so deep. And Stockholm syndrome, and it sounds like brainwashing, Stockholm syndrome inevitably involves an element of brainwashing. It's really a type of brainwashing, because sometimes it happens, it's something that our minds can do very spontaneously, but a savvy kidnapper will know how to do this, how to engender a sense of sort of affection and just good feelings within the person they've kidnapped. It's like a Romeo pimp, like in the sex industry, in the human trafficking industry. It's a pimp that acts really sweet and affectionate towards prostitutes to keep them in the game. So in this world, we've all been pimped out in a way, and most of the people doing the pimping haven't known it. So this is something that we've been deeply angry about for centuries, having our lives ruled by royals, now by people in representative government who, if you give them an inch, they take a mile, and they overreach and they try to dictate every aspect of our lives. Leaders in education, a lot of educators can be this way. People in the business world, bosses can be this way. Religion is horribly that way. So even people in this world who are in the most denial about what's wrong with the world, and even people with fabulous educations to stand behind, even they'll admit that something is very wrong with the world, and sometimes it's hard for people to put their fingers on, much less understand and come up with solutions for. But we all know something has been wrong with the world for a long time, and people are angry about it. So it's a time to heal that, and to as best we can, to get to the bottom of it. So now and as far as getting to the bottom of it goes, the thing about new moons is that it's the darkening of the moon. So the Earth's shadow goes in front of the moon, and we can't see it during a new moon. So since the moon is a correspondent to our mind, it's an analog of our mind, it's a version of our mind on the larger scale. When the moon darkens, it darkens our mind. So people can feel depressed, they can feel isolated, they can feel lonely. But also, when the moon darkens, when the mind darkens, things come out of the dark that we didn't expect at all, and they can be very shocking. So we always get sort of a surprise on a new moon, and we get faced with dealing with something in our lives and in the world that we weren't really aware of. And so, this is the kind of thing where you might ask, well, doesn't that pertain more to the full moon because the moon is fully illuminated? Well, the thing about light, it can illuminate things and clear things up, but it can also blind us. So it's like with stage lights, when one thing is lit, when one area is lit, you really can't see anything around it. Or if you have that spotlight pointed at you on the stage, you can't see out beyond that light. So that's what happens during a new moon. The moon is darkened, and we gain this new awareness of things we weren't really aware of before, or at least we're faced with dealing with things that we were in denial of and that we were procrastinating dealing with. So, and some other things going on around this too. We have, right on this new moon, we have Mercury retrograde through all this. Mercury's in the 10th house, and it's in Libra. So Libra's politics, 10th house is government. And retrogrades are all about going back and reviewing whatever a planet pertains to. It's not disaster, the sky is falling, everything's going to fall apart. It's about going back and reviewing things rather than taking new things on. So at the maximum of this new moon, we've got that retrograde Mercury in Libra in the 10th house. 10th house is government, Libra's politics. So we are having to review our thinking about politics and our relationship to politics, and how we're going to go forward and have a new relationship to it. And like I'm always saying, we've had an an addiction to ass kissing here on Earth for a long time. Kissing the asses and putting on the pedestal people with more money, more education, more status, more power, politicians, religious people, academics, people in the military, doctors, lawyers, whoever. So we need to heal this relationship to people with power and status, because we've had them on a pedestal. When you put someone on a pedestal, you lower yourself, you lower your own self-esteem. So instead of having self-esteem, we worship people who we think are better than us. And it's like I always say, Donald Trump is helping to kill politics, and none too soon, because politics as we know them just need to die, and we need to have self-esteem and see the value in ourselves rather than just worshiping rulers on high. So that's a very important part of this new moon. Also at the maximum of this new moon, the ascendant house, the first house is Capricorn. Saturn's in Capricorn. Saturn is in its home sign. So Saturn is basically doing house cleaning for government and reining it in and not letting it keep overreaching and just doing more crazy and crazier things and reinforcing our low self-esteem that we should just, crawl on our knees to them, or just anyone with money and power. So another part of this. Another thing too, at the maximum of the new moon, in the 12th house, Sagittarius, we have Jupiter and Pluto very close together. So Sagittarius is philosophy, it's spirituality, it's worldviews, it's higher learning. When it's out of balance, it's the truth that people get very self-righteous and extremist about. So Jupiter is at home there, and Jupiter is the teacher of higher knowledge. And Jupiter also expands things. So it's only within 3 degrees of Pluto, so they're very close together. Pluto is the underworld, the god of the underworld, the unconscious. It's the dark side of the world and of ourselves. Things that are hidden, things we're in denial of and that we don't want to deal with. So Jupiter is expanding the energy of Pluto and just making it impossible for us to deny all the dark stuff that Pluto is going to show us, and that is showing us. So Pluto in Sagittarius is showing us things about our belief systems we weren't aware of, and it's helping us to have a death and rebirth within our belief systems. So in this whole thing I always talk about people having low self-esteem and kissing ass to people in power, people with money and influence and status, that's because we have a belief that we should have low self-esteem and we don't have a lot of worth. So all that's being overturned. So Donald Trump is he's channeling Loki right now. He's channeling the trickster gods to help lead us into an ego trap and show us how self-righteous we've been and how stagnant we've become in a status quo. Another thing that's going on too on this new moon is that Venus and Neptune are in opposite signs. They're in a mutual aspect. They're in an opposition. Venus is in Leo in the 8th house, and Neptune is in Aquarius in the 2nd house. So Venus in the 8th house and Leo. Leo is leadership and executive figures, rulers, kings, presidents. 8th house is everything in life that's hidden, that's below the surface. Deals with deep, dark secrets. I should mention too that 12th house, where Jupiter and Pluto are, that deals with secrets too, with hidden things. So anyway, Venus and Leo in the 8th house. And then Venus is diplomacy, it's social activity, romance, social relationships. That is all about we are getting a look at basically the hidden side of rulers in our world and how they ingratiate ourselves to them and how they make it look like they're our friends to get our support. And so, like I said, across from that 8th house, you've got Neptune and Aquarius in the 2nd house, and Neptune is retrograde. Neptune is both a revealer and a deceiver, and it depends on what level your consciousness is at and what you're willing to believe and handle, what you're willing to wrap your head around and accept about your reality. So Neptune looking at Venus like this, and Neptune being in Aquarius, it means that the people are deluded. They don't see things clearly. So Neptune looking at this Venus and Leo in the 8th house, it means that we're getting revelations and disclosures about how people in power have lied to us in order to become our friends and schmooze up to us. And it also means that people in power are working harder than ever to deceive us so that we'll consider them friends and we'll act like they're going to save us. And the funny thing about politics is that it's really one of the new religions. It's right up there with science. Some people think they're too smart to fall for religion, but they worship politicians and they worship university professors just like messiahs. They think they're going to save them from everything. Or people worship, celebrities or the military or whatever. But people, no matter what their politics are, they all have false messiahs in this world. So yeah, Neptune is either revealing this to people or it's driving people deeper into those beliefs. So a lot of things going on here with this new moon. But like I said, this new moon is all about healing anger. And to help heal this anger, in my opinion, we're going to get some crazy off-the-wall disclosures in this world. I think more about the Jeffrey Epstein case is going to come out. I think there are going to be a lot of October surprises, and I don't have a horse in the political game. I just care about my country, and I wish people had more self-esteem to where they didn't need a president. They didn't need people to hold their hand the whole way and tell them what to do, but that's the world we live in. So I'm about people, I'm about my country. And so anyway, I think Donald Trump he's a brilliant manipulator, and he's got a lot of October surprises up his sleeve, and I think he should release this stuff because there's a lot of stuff that people need to see, and I commend him for doing that. I think one thing that billionaires do is they have access to a lot of influential people, and some of them gather blackmail on people. So he's been gathering blackmail on people for years. So you're going to see more about this Jeffrey Epstein case. A lot of powerful people in the Democratic Party were associated with him. Bill Clinton was on his plane 25 times. I think Alan Dershowitz was a friend of his. I think the truth about Benghazi is going to come out, about how Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, they hung Ambassador Stevens out to dry because CIA, State Department, they toppled Gaddafi's government because Gaddafi was doing really good things for Africa and for his country without getting loans from Wall Street. So they had to take him out, and they wanted to steal his oil. So after they did that, they were shipping a lot of the guns from the Libyan army's arsenal to Syria and giving them to Al-Qaeda in Syria to help overthrow the government of Syria so that the multinationals could steal Syria's oil and get the Syrian people into debt with Wall Street. So that ambassador was helping with the gun running and making those deals. And the Syrians wanted to capture him and put him on TV. The story is that a mob captured him, tried to capture him and set that building on fire, and he died. I know some guys who were in Benghazi, some special operations type guys, and they watched the thing go down, and it was special operations from Syria who wanted to capture that ambassador and make him talk on TV, keep him awake for 5 days and make him talk. So the truth about that's going to come out, how an American ambassador was hung out to dry, and it was a dead men tell no tales kind of thing. More is going to come out about Ukraine because, back in 2003, Dick Cheney was the inside man in government for oil companies and for weapons companies and all kinds of companies that wanted Saddam Hussein to be overthrown so that they could control Iraq and make a bunch of money. So Dick Cheney was the inside man in 2003. In 2014, Joe Biden did the same thing that Dick Cheney did to Iraq. He did that to Ukraine. He was the inside man in government for some crooked business people, and he authorized the use of the intelligence community to overthrow the Ukrainian government because they wanted to get Ukraine into the EU, because Ukraine was a long-time business partner of Russia, trading partner. And really, modern Ukraine is a fabrication that Joseph Stalin created. The real Ukraine is only about the western third of the country. So the eastern two-thirds of Ukraine were originally Russia for centuries, and Joseph Stalin gave that land to the Ukrainians, basically to put a pacifier in their mouth and just shut them up. So the point is that a lot of the multinational corporations, the big banks, wanted to separate Ukraine from Russia and get it into the EU, get the European Central Bank to steal all of Ukraine's wealth. So Joe Biden did the same thing to Ukraine that Dick Cheney did to Iraq. So not a good guy. So a lot of this is going to come out. Hunter Biden, involved in Burisma Oil, was basically introduced his dad to Ukrainian businessmen who stood to profit from all this. So a lot's going to come out on this, and a lot of people aren't going to want to believe this stuff in the beginning, but it's going to be tough to handle. But it's been a lot going on that we've been in denial of, or has just been hidden from us. So people are going to get angry about this stuff. And one thing about anger is that because of Stockholm syndrome that I mentioned earlier, where people sympathize with their captors, what happens a lot in life is that people don't realize that the hand they hold is the hand that holds them down, to quote Everclear. And people, things are so polarized, people have to take a side, and they just accuse, very narcissistically, they accuse the other side of just being the problem in every situation and always being wrong and always being evil. So, and that's a product of Stockholm syndrome, because it's like, in this world, both sides are villains. So people have been wrong, people have been angry at the wrong people, in my opinion, because People who can manipulate you most effectively are people that you love and like, because again, you put them on a pedestal. You put them above you and you below them, and they can get away with stuff because you let your guard down. If you despise somebody like Donald Trump or Nancy Pelosi or whoever, they can't manipulate you very easily. So it's the people that you like that you have to watch out for. So until people realize that, how manipulation works, their sense of anger is very misplaced. And we're seeing this with all this rioting going on around the country. They think that, these peaceful protesters that have been rioting and burning things down, they've been, anti-Republican, anti-Trump, and they think like a Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Bernie Sanders is going to save them. And that's just not true. Those people, if you're one of those people, those leaders, they just use you and they despise you as much as they despise, some Trump supporter. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but a lot of shocking things coming out with this new moon, and but it's a time to heal anger, and really this last month has been the sweet spot to deal with the anger. So if you've taken the time to heal anger and resentment in this last month, then your future is going to look a lot better. And this new moon's not going to be all that intense for you, but if you've been clinging on to your anger and resentment and not, you don't want to take in new information and maybe, adopt, new beliefs and views of the world, then going forward is going to be very tough for you, because politics is getting torn down, and the world we live in is going to get torn down because it needs to, and a new world needs to be reborn. And it's not going to be a democratic world or a Republican world or a socialist world or whatever. It's going to be one where we have to compromise and cooperate with each other. So that's all I've got for today. My website is thecosmicalchemist.com. I highly recommend a Vedic astrology reading with me if you want to see how these times affect you specifically and what opportunities that you may seize during these times, what opportunities you may seize and for your success. See how you can sort of move ahead in life during these times and kind of further develop yourself and further evolve. I also do rune readings, and I have Qigong videos for sale for download. So again, cosmicalchemist.com. If you like this video, give me a like and a share and a subscribe, and talk to you later. Have a good one.